Hey there, I want to make a little video today on Genesis chapter 16. Um, at this point in Abraham's life, it's been about 15 years since he had left his father's home, and he went with Lot, and Lot and him had separated, and Lot went towards Sodom, and he went in the land of Canaan and was sojourning there. So about 15 years have passed, and now they're getting a little bit, here it's Sarah. She's kind of starting to think, when is this promise? I'm getting old here. I can't bear children. This promise is that we're going to have inherit, all this land from their seed. And so they take things into their own hands. It says this, and Sarah's, Abraham's wife, did not bear to him, and to her belonged a female slave, an Egyptian, and her name was Hagar. And Sarah said to Abraham, now Jehovah has kept me from bearing. Go now to my slave girl, perhaps I may be built up from her. And Abraham listened to the voice of Sarah. And, she says, Jehovah has kept me from bearing. So she tries to fix this issue herself rather than go back to God. And for the other part, it seemed to sound good to Abram, and he just went along with it. Sometimes, not sometimes, most times, God makes us wait a long time, and waiting is one of God's tests. He has the people in the Word. When we read throughout Scripture, people are always waiting. I mean, in our lives, we are waiting on things that God, says to us many times as well. And it is so easy to want to make things happen ourselves or make them happen quickly because it's this promise that we have from the Lord, and it's like, why isn't it happening? And we, like Sarah, do the same thing. We can take things into our own hands. It's interesting in this here that Abraham, he took the slave girl to be his wife. And what happens is, when she gets pregnant, this is what happens. And and Hagar went out and conceived, and she saw that she had conceived, and her mistress was despised in her eyes. And Sarah said to Abram, my injury be upon you. I gave my slave girl into your bosom, and she saw that she had conceived, and I was despised in her eyes. Let Jehovah judge between me and you. And I just thought there's an interesting spiritual parallel we can draw here, because we have an enemy, and Satan is his name, and, all the ones who work with him. But they are diligent in, tempting us to do certain things. They'll put thoughts in our mind, do this. Yeah, it won't hurt, just go do that. And, or just like in this case, like take things into your own hands. And then we act on those things, and then he turns around and accuses us. And so this is kind of the same thing Sarah said in verse 2. She said to Abraham, God has kept me from bearing, so take my concubine, take my slave girl to be your other wife. And then in verses 5, Sarah says to Abraham, my injury be upon you. And then she says later on, let Jehovah judge between me and you. And so it kind of turns on him. She was the one with the idea, and now she flips it. And it says, but Abraham said to Sarai, and he says, to her what is good in your eyes. And then Sarah dealt harshly with her. And so, it's a mess, right? And so sometimes when we act too fast, and we are not patient on waiting on the Lord, things get messy very quick. And so, it is so important to wait on God's timing, to wait, to make sure that we listen so we can hear when the Lord is saying, now is the time, or now move. But sometimes we act so quickly. And you know, the result of this was in Ishmael. Ishmael was born. And you know, like, I would call Isaac the son of promise, and Ishmael was the son of either rejection or the son of the flesh. You know, it was something that they took into their own hands and did. And even though Ishmael was still greatly blessed, you know, it would always, the Ishmaelites, you know, like that line of people would become a thorn in the side of the Jewish people, you know. But it was also fulfilling the promise of God that Abraham would be father of many nations, because many nations would come from that as well. So sometimes, you know, when we don't wait on God, yes, we have made mistakes, and, you know, we can say, oh, it's too late now. Well, God can still use the Ishmaels in our lives, you know, to bring about good. And, you know, he is a good God, and he does work out all things according to his purposes. And so, yeah, just I encourage you to trust him, and I encourage you to wait on him, because sometimes, most times, the Lord is, you know, in our view, late. But he is never late. He's always right on time. So we need to learn to be patient. Talk to you later. Be blessed. Subscribe if you want to get some more videos.